B-roll Stratton.
Okay, Annie, look at your grandpa. And there you go, beautiful. And Dick, if you wouldn't mind, let's show Annie a piece of history. She's not even seen Life magazine before. What is in that Life magazine about you and your life? Go ahead and pick it up and start to show it. And you can point to different things.
Well, Annie, this thing has gone bankrupt, and it went bankrupt because my picture was in it, and then they lost all their sales. But this is the first sign that your grandmother knew that I was alive. And
Hey Dick, can you go do that again, but hold the magazine a little lower?
A little lower, so
There you go.
Now we can see her face.
But start at the beginning again, Dick.
oh, you never start at the beginning. The beginning is always something different, and this one is different too. But I was bragging that I bankrupted Life magazine because my picture was in it, and they couldn't sell it after that, except when Mr. Commodity came in, and I'll show you another one of those. But this was the first time that your mother knew that I was still alive after I had been shot down. I was shot down in January, and this Hummer came out in April. And she didn't know whether I was dead or alive, missing in action, killed in action, or whatever.
And
So,
Annie, take that in. Your grandfather's saying that they didn't know if he was alive or dead. Look at him occasionally, okay? That's a good scene, Annie.
I'm alive, yes.
And kind of hold the cover down a little bit, Dick. There you go, perfect.
So anyway, she gets a call, and it was an alert from a friend that we had in the Office of Naval Intelligence. You know, the people on NCIS, well, these were the people that came along before. And it was the Office of Naval Intelligence, a guy by the name of Bob Burrows, a great guy. And he called up grandmother and said, gave her an alert and said, there's a picture of your husband coming out in Life magazine, and you're not going to like it, but he's alive and he's well. So she, first thing in the morning, got next door neighbor, Mrs. Foy, and they went down to the drugstore, and they bought up all of these they could find, and took a look at that and figured, well, now that's some pro-North Vietnamese communist guy came in and made a buck putting on a propaganda article.
I'm going to ask you to pause one moment, Dick. I just need, I know that Annie looks delightful as a little devil for her Halloween costume, but these two little are coming right out of the back of her head.
Well, that's okay. Why not?
Yeah,
It's okay.
okay. Go ahead, Dick.
So
Back up a little bit and start again.
a fellow was under contract to Life magazine to go over to Vietnam and take some pictures. And his name was Lee Lockwood. And when he arrived over there, the Vietnamese army took his cameras, all of the cameras and junk that he brought with him, and they went around taking pictures of things that they thought would make North Vietnam look good, which is hard because it didn't look good.
I'm so sorry, Dick. 1 second. Yeah. My mistake. We had an accidental thing there. Okay. All right, go ahead.
So we have the Vietnamese army taking the pictures, supposedly being taken by an independent photojournalist, which is kind of phony. And when they finished all their sequence, they gave him back his cameras and said, you're going to stay here 2 more nights because we have a real surprise for you. We have a real live Yankee air pirate, and you're going to be able to see him and take pictures of him.
Do you know what a Yankee air pirate means, Annie?
I do not.
Why don't you ask your grandpa what he means by that?
What does that mean?
Well, I'm a Yankee. You're a Yankee, right?
Okay.
Well, I'm born up north, so I'm a Yankee, okay? Americans are Yankees. New York Yankees are Yankees, okay? Air pirate, well, you know what a pirate is, okay? Well, there are such things as air pirates in the Vietnamese mind. We who were flying over North Vietnam were acting like pirates. So they called us Yankee, being American, air pirates. And actually, it's kind of funny when you talk about it, but they were talking about it in a legal sense. If I catch you as a pirate trying to capture my ship, and I capture you, I can hang you. No trial, no nothing. If I catch you in the act of doing something. They were trying to get that for us. They were going to hang us as soon as they got us. So Yankee Air Pirate is a kind of a double-edged sword. We're back to Mr. Lockwood. He comes in, and he had been taking all kinds of pictures of people. Or the Vietnamese took them for him. Well, he goes in, and he is brought into a hall where they have a whole bunch of the diplomatic corps and the press corps of Hanoi. And there's a hall, and at the front are a group of Vietnamese communists, and they play a tape recording of a confession, my voice. And then they stuff me out, and I'm supposed to come out and give a nice Japanese haidozo bow. You know, you've seen that in the movie type of stuff. And I took a look around and said, this is not good. This is going to be used against our country. So I decided that I'd pretend that I'd been drugged, brainwashed. And I went into a full bow like that. And the audience was out here. This is Dum Dum, one of the guards. That's the clean name we gave him. And I bowed to him, which immediately put my rear end facing the people at the table. So I invented mooning in Hanoi. I did. So then I turned around and bowed to the back wall and mooned the audience. Okay, and then turned around, bowed the other way, and stood up at attention. And Dum Dum yells out, bow. So when I did it, box the compass, each north, south, east, west, box the compass, bowing like that. They got the hook. They hauled me off. And people don't remember the so-called confession, but people do remember that picture. And that's what that one came from.
What do you think, Annie? Is there anything you wonder about what your grandpa went through? Any questions? Like, was he scared or whatever?
Well, yeah, I'm sure you were scared, but what did you think to do? Were you gonna try to escape?
I know the interesting part about it was that I wasn't scared. The scaring was something you put aside when you're doing this kind of work. When you're flying missions in an airplane, when you're flying through bad weather, all kinds of professional things that a pilot would do or a military guy would do flying a mission, you become focused on that mission, and emotions are all suppressed. So this, to me, was a combat situation. I was in there, and I had to find a way to deny them what they wanted. And this was my way of denying any propaganda advantage because I looked so stupid. Like I say, it ruined this magazine. You can't find on the shelves anymore. I bankrupt them. You know, what a terrible picture. They're stupid. But look at the wonderful nose and their haircut and all that. They really got me. It was good. Escape wasn't in the cards. I don't look the least bit like Dum Dum. I could maybe get out of the prison. That'd be hard, but I probably could. But I'm in a town of 1 million people that look like that. And look, he got a nice little nose, cute little nose. Isn't that cute? How am I going to pretend to be a Vietnamese? How far am I going to get? And we have some friends that actually did escape and got picked up within 24 hours because they couldn't blend in with the population. But they were good questions. But thinking of escape, well, you always have that in the back of your mind. Is it possible? Could I? And yes, I could escape from prison, but I couldn't get out of the country. And was I afraid? I was too busy. It's at night when you're alone in solitary confinement. That's when things that go bump in the night sneak up on you, even when you're an adult. And doubts about what you did and fear of what's going to happen next, that's always with you, and you learn to control it. And the more you talk about it with somebody, or the more that you think about it and organize your thoughts, how you overcome it, it's not a problem. But I was getting paid for that. Full pay and allowances and flight pay. I was getting flight pay to bow for Life magazine. Can you imagine that?
And Dick, why were you such a prized possession for the Vietnamese?
The reason they wanted me, because look at me, I'm magnificent. I am their caricature of a mad Yankee air pirate. I've got a crew cut, a big nose, pot belly, I'm knock-kneed, and I'm ding-toed. And that immediately says to them, I'm a vicious, miserable, mean American Yankee air pirate. And so they wanted me to confess to having bombed their capital city and ruined some of their diplomatic negotiations. And I hadn't. I wish I had. I have no objection to it, but it would be nice. It's hard to confess to something you didn't do.
Annie, can you ask him, just look at him and say, why did they want you to confess?
Why did they want you to confess?
Well, they wanted me to say that the President of the United States was lying when he said that we did not bomb the city of Hanoi. They wanted me to make the President of the United States a liar and say it. Well, it doesn't make any difference whether he was or not. When you're an American in a foreign city, you don't go around calling any president a liar. Your loyalty's to your country first. That's
And why don't you ask your grandpa about solitary confinement, what that's like? Because that's really something that most of us will never experience.
So, what is it like to be, like, alone? in
Well,
traffic?
There's another picture. That guy is alone. We know him, your parents know him. In fact, Pat used to babysit for his kids, your father, later on when we came back from Vietnam. But that cell, I had been in that cell myself alone. And that picture is probably better than any words I can say. That just looks like a bad situation, a lousy situation. And what you have to do is realize that you have in your head something that no one can take away from you. All your experience, everything you've read, everything you have observed, and you can create your own world, and you don't need anything here. You'd like to have other things here, but I'd sit there by myself and I'd build myself an airplane, and I'd paint it, and I'd fly it, and I'd land it, and I'd put it back in the hangar. I would build myself a cabin out in the woods next to a lake. I'd go and buy the materials and all of that, and I'd do that all in my mind. I would recreate your grandmother, your father, and your Uncle Monk, your Uncle Charlie, and the time I had with them, and what I would do with them when I came home. So I created an imaginary world, and your imagination's a wonderful thing. So actually, that room, and with Paul Galante sitting in there, is really very crowded, but you can't see it. It's because Paul was a master at doing what I'm talking about, creating his own world. And of course, one of the main things is, how can I get out of here? And how can I deny them what they want? How can I make life miserable for these people? Because I want to earn my pay. They're paying me. I got to keep fighting. I mean, they're paying my family, they're putting food on the table, the government is doing this. And so I have to earn my pay. I just can't sit there and scratch my head. So we set about the work of the ship every day of trying to get at the Vietnamese enemy. And we spent the night alone trying to build our own world. It was a busy time.
Annie, look at him and ask him, how did you keep from getting very depressed?
How did you keep from getting depressed?
Well, initially, when I first got there, I was depressed because you're not supposed to say anything, and they make you say things. You know, if you say more than your name and your rank, your serial number, and your date of birth, you've done something you're not supposed to do. They can make you say more than that. Actually, they collect more from the ground around you, your airplane, the parts and paper and all that kind of stuff. They know more than that already, but they can make you actually say it. And then you feel like you have betrayed your country. You're less than a courageous American, that you're a wimp. And that depresses you. But once you realize that other people have gone through the same thing and they bounce back, and that's just like taking a fall and picking yourself up and keep on running, then you put all that behind you, and you don't get depressed unless you want to be depressed. If you invite depression in, you'll get it. But that's true right now. You can invite depression in right now, and you can ruin your whole vacation by just simply getting up every morning and saying, it's a lousy world, I'm depressed. And sure enough, it'll be. If you go out and say it's a great Navy day and we're going to go out there and get them, it's a great Navy day. And it works that way, and it worked that way in jail. And it worked that way for him and others. So we know that depression is something that if it's not physically caused by your genes or the chemistry in your body, if it's something out of your head, you can handle that, you can cure that, you can control that, you can put that back in its cage, and that's what we did. So once we put it away, that was the least of our worries, was depression. We were too busy. And actually, when they stopped hurting us intentionally, we were having a lot of fun. It was your grandmother back home and your father, didn't know whether I was all right or not. They didn't know whether I was alive really or dead on that day, or whether I was getting anything to eat. And I knew that I was perfectly okay. I knew you'd get me home. Kind of wondered why it took them so long, but I knew you'd get me home. And I was having a ball, because every day I was making life miserable for the North Vietnamese, and that's what I was paid to do. And I was doing my job and having a grand time doing it. And it's hard to be depressed when you're having a good time.
Annie, ask him, did you work together as a team, and how did you do that? Look at him and ask him.
Did you work together as a team, and how did you work together?
Well, in aviation particularly, but in all the services, you learn very, very soon. Probably the first day that you meet your drill instructor, you learn that the only way you're going to survive is to work together with everybody that's in the same boat with you. With the people in the same platoon and boot camp and all of that. Once you get into flight training, you survive as a group going through class learning to fly together. When you go to a squadron, you learn the best way to survive is squadron sticking together, working as a team. And of course, once you get into war and combat, it's obvious you don't do anything unless you do it as a team, all working together. So take that background and throw you into prison, and what are you going to do? You're going to organize yourself the way that made you successful in flying and school and growing up and all that. You make a team. You select a team captain. You get your playbook and you write out your playbook and stuff like that. You practice. Okay, so communicating, learning how to tap on the wall, sort of like a Morse code type of thing, tapping on the wall. You made up our own deaf spelling code so we could send visual signs. So we had a lot of work to do. And some people were best at tapping. Some people were best to communicate. Other people were best at translating, listening to it. So each person in the team had their specialty and their job. And it's no different than when you put together a track and field team. You take people with the best talent in each area and bring them together. And you keep your personal goals, because you always need to do that, because you're living with yourself, let's face it. And you want to be the best you can, but also you realize that to succeed in anything, you had to work as a team, and we built it. We made it work.
Is there a way that you could demonstrate? Do you know what the tap code is, Annie?
I do. Well, I've heard of it before.
You've heard of it? Why don't you ask your grandpa if he can explain it to you?
Could you explain some of the codes that you use?
Well, the most common code was what we called the tap code. And what it was is building a box, which is a quadratic alphabet. In other words, an even number of letters across and an even number of letters down. So you would set it up so that the first tap would give you what row you're in. The second tap would give you what letter in the row. So you'd go first row, first letter is an a B, first row, second. One of the most important things was calling up. You didn't want the enemy to know, because they eventually learned the code. You didn't want them to know what you were saying, so you'd call up. You know what that is? Shave and a haircut. You ever hear that? Shave and okay. What's the answer to it? 2 bits. Shave and a haircut. 2 bits. Well, we'd go shave and a haircut and wait for the guy on the other side of the wall to come back and say 2 bits. And we knew we had an American on there. Vietnamese would get on there. He had no idea about shave and a haircut. So he'd go, shave and a haircut, 2 bits. And you knew right away that you had a ringer on the other side. So you had to remember the first letter of the box. If you picture this 5x5 box. And this guy taught me, first letter, American Football League quits victorious. A, F, L, Q, V. Those are the first letters. So I didn't have to go through my mind and divide up an alphabet of 25 letters. All I had to do was remember American Football League quits victorious, which was kind of funny because in those days, the last thing in the world the American Football League was victorious, but it sort of stuck in your mind. And we were able to really get a lot of information back and forth like that. So we would come up with, they'd answer, we'd go, hi. And then we'd tap whatever we had to tap. We'd end up at the end of the thing with GBU, God bless you. For Sunday services, everything would pause. At about the same time, right after the chow plates were put away and they locked us in for their siesta, they'd just tap a V on the wall, up and down the wall, and that was our church service for the day. Everybody would pause, tap the V, pause, and then we'd all either start communicating or go to sleep or something like that.
Annie, ask your grandfather to tap out your name so you can hear what it sounds like.
Could you tap out my name?
And I'm sure, why? Hey, what?
Good job.
Thank you.
Beautiful. That was fantastic. You good, Bill?
Yeah.